Hi, everyone. Welcome to Colombo Chronicles Live, number 1. This is our first show, and I'm really excited to be here with you at Colombo's Chronicles Live, right here on Worldwide Online Blog Talk Radio, where intelligent people come and gather to make informed decisions. And we will be sharing our time on live radio with a really special guest every week, every Wednesday. So bookmark and mark your calendars because every week we will have a special guest and be an author, an expert, and it could be on just about a myriad of topics that are of human interest to all of us because animals and the environment and politics and corruption and what's going on in our country today, the USA, and affects the rest of the world. It affects our personal lives. It affects our communities. It affects our children, our families, and our future. I mean, everyone's concerned about their future today because there's so much corruption that it has actually become a novelty for Americans to experience someone who is honest, trustworthy, a person of integrity that serves in public office, and a person of character, not a character, but a person of character. So that is really important that we get back on track. And there's so much going on in our country that are on the minds of everyone. So tonight we have a really special guest, and his name is Stefan H. Verstappen. And he is a Canadian writer, and he's an author of 8 books. And they include The 36 Strategies of Ancient China, Blind Zen, The Art of Urban Survival, and The Master's Guide to the Way of the Warrior. He's worked as a street youth counselor in Toronto's most notorious housing project, and later as the wilderness survival instructor for the Toronto Boys Home Outward Bound program. As an instructor for St. John Ambulance, he helped plan and run natural disaster drills and train police and rescue workers in first aid and CPR. He has traveled extensively and spent 4 years in Hong Kong and Taiwan studying Chinese martial arts. So before we talk to our guest this evening, why don't you sit back and relax and think about grabbing a cup of coffee and enjoying the information, the expertise that Stefan H. Verstappen is about to provide to us and share with us. So this is a really a great way to learn about psychopaths and sociopaths. And in fact, I wanted to mention that I have something really important going on right now, and it's a website. Before we talk to our guests, I want to tell you about this website that I've been working on and creating. Have you ever wanted to ask a question but felt that there wasn't anyone who would take you seriously? I think we've all felt that way. Maybe you have a concern, maybe you have an idea, maybe you just don't have anyone to talk to, or who wants to listen, or pay attention to you, or just belittles you or makes fun of you. Well, now you can go to ColomboChronicles.com. That's COLOMBO, ColomboChronicles.com, and click on Subscribe Today and sign up so you can ask your question and receive a response in a timely manner. So that is there for you now, and it's a new website, and you may want to check it out at ColomboChronicles.com. You can also find me at Facebook, and you can find me on social media, including Twitter at Rose4Justice. And if you like to read blogs, political blogs, check out my website at Rose4Justice, that's the number 4, Rose4Justice.com, and it'll take you to Rose4Justice blogs and radio shows where you'll have an entire list of blogs to read and an area to make comments, and also a list of many of my very, very important and special guests that I've interviewed over the years. And we're going to bring some of them back on Colombo Chronicles Live just for you. And so that's about it for my shared information on Colombo's Chronicles.com, COLOMBO, CHRONICLES.com. So why don't we say hello to our guest and get started, because he has some really important information to share with us. Hello, Stefan. How are you this evening?
I'm good, Rose. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, and I am so excited because, number one, we got our time mixed up because obviously they changed the time frame to meet the East Coast rather than the West Coast. So I really appreciate your calling in and taking the time to call in a little bit later than we have scheduled. And I'm really excited because you have a topic that's of interest to all of us, and it's about our way of life, and it's open for a wide range of discussion and brainwashing and the way that people are being programmed and how we're being manipulated in a way. And you have a video. It's called "We Are at War." I like the name because we are at war, Stefan. And it says that our society is under full-scale attack by psychopaths intent on destroying our minds, spirits, and our lives. And having been in the video industry for a long time, my experience was to provide people with peace of mind in mind, spirit, and body. So this is of interest to me. You also say that public education, fluoride, and mainstream media destroy thinking, and that feminism, political correctness, and popular culture destroy the human spirit, and chemtrails, vaccines, GMO food, and microwave radiation destroy health. So that's huge, and it's on the minds of every American and probably people around the world. So to start off with, Stefan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and why this topic is of interest to you?
Yeah, that's a long story. The background, I've always been interested in life and understanding truth. I had what you would call, or what they used to call, an enlightenment experience when I was 12 years old in Holland. And from that day onwards, I've just always wanted to know what truth is. And I've spent my entire life searching for truth, from spiritual pursuits to enlightenment to, there was a point at one Christmas, my mother bought me an encyclopedia set. It was one of these door-to-door encyclopedia salesmen that they had back in the 60s. Now we're going back, And when I got that encyclopedia set, I was so excited because, being naive, I thought the total sum of world knowledge is now contained in this encyclopedia, and if only I read every book, I would know everything in the world. So I read every book, and but of course, it was just like I think I was 8 at the time, but that sort of gives you the sort of perspective I've always been coming from. I just wanted to know everything. So one of the burning questions in my life has always been, why is there so much evil in the world? Because we should be living in a paradise. And I know with people that I meet, that I've met in my life, everybody wants to do good. Yeah, there's a few, bad characters. We'll talk about them later. But for the most part, most people I've met, they want to be good. They're not interested in causing violence or pain or suffering to people. So why is there so much violence, pain, and suffering? And it was a question I've been looking into for years and years. At first, I came up with a theory that I called them psychic vampires. Nothing to do with psychics and nothing to do with vampires. But it was the type of people that just seemed to suck the energy out of you. And it was when I was researching my book, The 36 Strategies of Ancient China, and which are, ancient Chinese proverbs that are sort of, for those who are familiar with the famous book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, they're very similar to The Art of War, except they're just a little bit more ruthless. And I wanted to illustrate each one of these strategies with a anecdote from history that shows how that strategy was used in the past. And so I began to read military history, looking for descriptions of battlefield tactics and strategies. And, of course, I read everybody else, too, from, Miyamoto Musashi to, what was that Czechoslovakian guy? Anyways, and I kept reading all these horror stories, from all these battles. I think it was World War I. Reading about World War I really struck me because it was such a senseless bloodbath. And I kept reading these battlefield accounts, and I came to the conclusion that war was fought for the sole purpose of killing a lot of young men. There was no geopolitical strategy. Well, there was, but it sort of was in the background. The foremost focus was killing your own men, and I mean the generals killing their own men. I'll give you an example. General Pershing, who is a very famous general there in the United States, was in charge during World War I. They have a statue of him at West Point. They named the Pershing tank after him. On the day of the armistice, they received an order that the Germans had surrendered. The war was going to end at 11 o'clock, November 11th, right? And so to stand down the troops. Now, this General Pershing decided to launch an attack on the German front lines at 9 o'clock that morning, okay? 2 hours before he knew the whole war was going to come to an end. He launched, he sent those 17 and 18-year-old farm boys up over the trenches, head on into the German machine gun emplacements, and he got 3,000 of them killed 2 hours before the end of the war. Now, that man is a psychopath.
That is absolutely shocking because I don't think most people think about that or actually know about that, especially the younger people, because they don't even teach much about U.S. history and civics any longer in our public schools. So I think that's a really scary and shocking and important point. You said 3,000 of our young men were killed.
For no good reason.
Is that correct?
Yes.
For no good reason.
Now, I might be wrong on the number 3,000. It might have been, I forget what it was, it might have been 2,200, something like that. It was a ridiculous number. A huge number of young boys that got killed for no reason. See, this is when I started to really become aware of the psychopathic mentality, because if you don't understand psychopaths, you can't understand what's going on in the world, because to a normal person it makes no sense. Here you are, you're in charge of all these young boys. You know the war is going to end. They've already declared, they've already surrendered. Officially it's going to end in 2 hours. Why would you send your men into battle? And again, remember, World War I was just, it was a meat grinder. The whole point was being a meat grinder. This trench warfare was completely unnecessary. It was just for no other purpose than to kill a lot of German and American and French boys. And they succeeded because we have after the First World War, what was written about by such great writers as Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald, we have what was called the lost generation. I mean, Europe and America lost a lot of people, and afterwards there wasn't a lot of men around anymore. And why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you kill your own men for no possible advantage?
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. Why do you think that he would do that? Why would he send all these young men right into the arms of the German tanks?
Well, and that's where we get to psychopaths, because people understand psychopaths as being serial killers, and yes, serial killers tend to be psychopaths, but most psychopaths are probably politicians and CEOs of major corporations. And yes, they're greedy and selfish, and they have no empathy. But the other aspect of psychopaths, and then we can talk about Pizzagate and pedophilia and all that, is they enjoy doing evil. It is, unless you understand that, you can't figure out what's going on in the world. These people, it's not just enough that they have power and money. That doesn't do it for them. They have to have power and money. Means nothing to them unless you have no power and no money. And for them to have a good and happy life means nothing to them unless they can see that you are suffering. And so part of their kink, and they've done recently studies on that, where they did an MRI on the human brain of psychopaths, and they would show photographs of little bunnies that are cute, and well, no reaction. Little puppies, no reaction. Little children, no reaction. Bloody corpses, dismemberment, beheadings. Now the brain starts to light up, and it's pleasure centers. So these people, not only are they just horrible people, they also enjoy doing evil and seeing suffering. That's what gets them off. So this general person, seeing that the war was going to be over and soon he would be out of fun, because it was so much fun to spend 3 years slaughtering American boys and German boys, he wanted to have one last kick at the can. And so 2 hours before the end of the war, he sent these boys off to die because he enjoyed it. That's why he enjoyed it.
Well, it's amazing that you would say that, because I was watching a documentary, and the reporter was asking, I believe it was Margaret Thatcher, in some particular war, it said that there was like 100,000, I think it was World War II, 100,000 children were killed, and they asked if, how she felt about that, and she basically said, if it's, if it meets the goal of the government, then it's okay. Basically, is what she was saying.
Yeah, are you talking about Madeleine Albright?
I'm curious to. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And then she was. I can't remember, because it was a long time ago. I was watching that, and I can't remember if it was which woman it was, but it was a major leader who said that, but I was watching it, and I was thinking to myself, that sounds like a sociopath or a psychopath, because what if, how could anyone make a statement that 100,000 children being slaughtered would not be a big deal if it met the goals of the government, and so the soldiers who are going to war and being sent over to war, sometimes you hear politicians refer to them in the past as collateral, human collateral. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, that's a typical insight into the psychopathic mindset. Let me just I hate to correct you, Rose, but the quote I think you're referring to was Madeleine Albright, who was, I think, Secretary of Defense at the time under Bush.
Oh, yeah, it was. I'm sorry. What did I say?
And she was being interviewed by Diane Stahl on CNN or 60 Minutes. And they were referring to the estimated, not 100,000 children, 500,000 children that died as a result of the sanctions on Iraq that Bush and Madeleine Albright had instituted against that country. Cut them off basically with medical supplies, and so all these children died from lack of medical supplies, and quite a few of them starved as well. And when they asked her, do you think it's worth the cost for their foreign policy, okay, for meddling in a country they have no business meddling in, is it okay, do you think it's worth it to kill 500,000 children? And then she said, yeah, I think it was worth it. So there you go. I mean, first of all, the immorality of the entire situation, there are like 6-8 degrees of immorality and evil involved in it just to begin with. First of all, America has no business being in Iraq or Iran or Syria or Somalia or the Philippines or Hawaii, or no business being there. And that you're there and you're causing all this death and destruction, it's completely immoral and illegitimate. And then to say that killing all these children is perfectly acceptable because, well, we needed to do what we needed to do. And so that is a psychopathic mindset. They don't care. They don't care how many people they kill. Doesn't bother them.
So are there different degrees of sociopaths and psychopaths? Or are they just all one?
No, there's various degrees. It depends.
One way of thinking.
Yeah, no, it depends on the malevolence factor. I think there was a TV series not too long ago, about maybe 5-10 years ago, and they were rating psychopathic serial killers on a scale between 1 to 10 or something like that, and 10 being the ones that like to rape and torture for days and days kind of thing, and 1 being they would just poison you or smother you in your sleep. Yeah, there's different degrees of psychopath. The most mild form of psychopathy would be pathological narcissism. So into this category, just about 80% of your pop stars and musicians and movie stars would fall into that category. Now, as a pathological narcissist, they're not necessarily malevolent. They're not out to do evil. It's just that they want everything for themselves. They want the attention, they want the money, the adoration, the reputation, and that's what they thrive on, and they'll do anything to get it, right? They don't care about you. They'll use people and toss them away like a dirty Kleenex. That doesn't bother them at all. They'll sleep with whoever they need.
Well, the reason I was asking that is because President Clinton, back in the 90s, ordered a study on human capital. That's another thing that stuck in my mind, and that was quite a long time ago too. But it's being implemented today under the Clinton, Bush, and Obama regime, whereas human capital is using human beings for profit or for worth or lack of worth by the government, and like, for example, to fill the prison beds. So they'll accuse you, and most people don't have enough money for lawyers, especially criminal lawyers who are really expensive, and to defend themselves. And so they will accuse you of something, and so either you plea bargain and end up in jail, or you end up in jail anyway. And so they're using people that's just an example, to fill the warehouses called jails, prisons, with adults. And now they're using, and of course they have juvenile hall for children, but now they've even gone steps further on that level, which is to implement the private prisons and the private juvenile halls, and they need people to fill the private prisons or the county or state prisons and the juvenile halls. And there has been corruption where the judges have been found guilty in some cases of taking money for throwing innocent kids into juvenile hall, in those private juvenile halls. So when you say that you have to have a mindset of a sociopath to throw innocent people and children into, whether it's a state, county jail or a private jail or juvenile hall?
Yeah,
because we have more people in America that are jailed today than any country in the world, including Russia and China.
Yeah. No, America is a, I hate to say this, but America's a horror show. It's the corruption has gone so deep now. We've all become acclimatized to it. We have, most of us don't even realize what a madhouse we are living in and how completely malevolent it is. Sure, yeah. Look at all of it. And if Clinton, Billy Boy, I mean, that guy's a full-blown psychopath, and not just a narcissist. Yes, he's a narcissist. Sure, he loves himself and he likes all the skirt he can get a hold of. But this guy's taken plane trips on the Lolita Express to Billionaire's Island, who has been convicted of child molestation and child pornography. I mean, come on, what are you doing hanging around with people like that? The reason he's hanging around people like that is because he's like that. And these psychopaths recognize each other, and that's the other thing that people don't understand about, the whole psychopathy. Two con men will go into a small town back in the Midwest in the 1880s, and they would recognize each other, and they'll work together to fleece everyone in town. And so when you have these politicians, for people that share a vice, recognize each other, okay? An alcoholic will recognize another alcoholic. A tweaker will recognize another tweaker. A pedophile will recognize another pedophile. They get each other, and they recognize each other, and that immediately forms a bond with them. So if you have the President of the United States, I forget how many flights they logged with him. He's in the phone book and everything. Irrefutable evidence. It's mainstream media even covers it. Going to this, tropical island where they have these underage orgies. I mean, you're not there by accident, You're there because you're one of them. That makes him a pedophile. Now, if you're a pedophile, you're a psychopath. I don't have, I have no leeway in dealing with people that think sex with children is in any way acceptable. You would have to be a pedophile. And I don't care if you are somehow, through some weird psychological programming, attracted sexually to children, you still wouldn't do it if you weren't a pedophile. So, if you weren't a psychopath, excuse me. So, yeah, that's, most of these people, what's happened is that we have had psychopaths in charge of so much of our society. They're in charge of the school system. They're in charge of the movie industry. They're in charge of the television show. They're in charge of the banks. They're in charge of the government. And what happens when you have psychopaths in charge of all the major channels of influence and culture and power, they will try to poison society so that everyone starts to become a psychopath. That's the behavior.
Yes, they desensitize people through movies, through music, especially the youth, and through the material world, as Madonna sang, and through greed and money and lust and making little kids, admire inappropriate dressing and dancing and curse words in the cartoons and in the children's programs. And we have adults who are involved in those programs, and no one's protesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the past we had these groups, especially church groups, who would monitor the Hollywood's movies and cartoons and Disney's cartoons, and they actually rated them. And now what used to be R-rated is PG.
Yeah.
Family time.
Yeah. So when you said earlier, my video, we are at war. We are at war, and all of this is part of the strategy. It's in the 36 strategies. It's number 35, and it's called the strategy of combining strategies, which means you don't attack a person, you don't attack your enemy just one way. You attack them multiple ways. Therefore, they can never know where to defend. You attack them from behind, you attack them from the left, you attack from within, and that's what they are doing. I mean the psychopathic elite, the psychopathic cabal that runs the world are attacking us, and they are poisoning our culture to produce people that accept psychopathic behavior. And they're also trying to kill us off. It's just
yes, they are. They are definitely trying to do that. Why don't you go ahead and grab a cup of coffee or hot tea or a glass of water, and we're going to talk about that just as soon as we come back and take a little break. And if anyone wants to call in, you can call in at 646-564-9742 and speak to our very special guest, Stefan H. Verstappen. He is a Canadian researcher, writer, author of 8 wonderful books. And so, Stefan, stay with us, and we'll be right back in a moment. Hi, everyone. You're listening to a new show. It's called Colombo Chronicles Live, number 1. This is our first show, and we're really excited that you've joined us. Don't feel shy. You can call in and ask our guest, Stefan H. Verstappen, any questions at 646-564-9742. And I just wanted to remind those who have a question or a concern or an idea and they have no one else to talk to, or they're afraid they'll be belittled, or that person won't be interested in what they have to say, or they just don't have anyone to listen to their ideas and their concerns. But now you can go to www.colombochronicles.com, and you'll enter into a beautiful new website, and you can read all of the information and also get some tips on the law. And you can ask your question if you just go to subscribe today at the top of the page and click it on. You can go to colombochronicles.com and click on subscribe today and ask any question or concern or a question about an idea you might have, and you will get a wonderful response, a personal response in a very timely manner, and it will be a caring response about your concern or your idea, and to the best of the ability of the responder at colombochronicles.com. So be sure to check it out. And you can also go to roseforjustice.com to read blogs and check out the list of wonderful, wonderful, important and prominent people, authors, experts, politicians who have been interviewed on many of my radio shows. And I really want to thank you for tuning in today. This is our first show. We're getting the kinks out. And I definitely want to thank my special guest, Stefan H. Verstappen, who is from Canada. And he's been a great guest because he's been I had warned him that we might have some kinks to get out because we're still improving the show, and it will continue to be improved each week. But he has excellent information, and you can take it away, and you can think about it, you can research it, and you can go to his Amazon.com to find a wonderful list of his 8 books. And his first name is spelled Stefan, capital H period, and Verstappen, capital Verstappen. So let's go ahead and continue on with the information about Let's go to the Master's Guide to the Way of the Warrior, because you talk about a warrior, but what does it mean to be a warrior, Stefan? Because we have so many battles that we're battling today and still trying to keep ourselves healthy in mind, body, and spirit along with our families when we have so many arrows shooting at us and we feel like we're surrounded and being buried between the chemtrails and the GMOs and the radiation. You can't even go to the airport anymore without them radiating you. So, I mean, in the vaccinations, the mandated vaccinations that are chemical laden, I mean, it is absolutely crazy how they are invading our bodies with all of these chemicals that are bound to either cause chronic illness or kill us. So how do we become warriors? What is the meaning of a warrior?
It's a long topic. But, let me backtrack just a bit and tell you why I came to write the book, The Way of the Warrior. Other than, it's a book I've been working on, no kidding, for like 30 years. I was inspired since I was like 12 years old. I don't know if anybody remembers these dime store novels, Doc Savage, Man of Bronze. I love those books. He was a scientist. He was a martial arts master. He was a detective. He was a brilliant painter. He was all these things. A real Renaissance man. So I was always inspired by, books like that, Doc Savage, and then the Dune series. By Frank Herbert, and the Bene Gesserit, and then Star Wars with the Jedi Knights. So I started working on a book that would teach people how to become like a Jedi Knight, like this what you see in the movies, not just somebody who was good at fighting. Fighting is fighting, but I mean a real warrior that was smart and cunning and could see through all the artifice and was a poet, was a philosopher, was a scholar, a historian. All these things were typically part of a warrior archetype that has been expressed through the writings of people going all the way back to Confucius, China's famous philosopher from the 5th century BC. And Confucius said that the problem with the society is because the rulers and the people lack virtue, and that if we can instill virtue in the people, then society would be fixed. And so how did he recommend people restore virtue? And he said, well, they would need to become warriors. And he described a warrior as someone who, yes, was a master of the sword, but somebody who also was a scholar. You had to be an intellectual. You needed to develop your mind through reading of the classics of history, reading of philosophy and sciences, and through poetry and literature. And he said you also need to train your heart, your creativity. And so a warrior was also somebody who was an artist, could be a gardener or a great cook, or somebody who painted or carved or did flower arrangement. You needed to be part or express your creativity and to exercise it. And it's not important that you're good. People think, oh, I don't want to paint because I'm no good at it, or people won't like it. Well, it's not for people to like or not to like. It's for you to experience and to express yourself in a creative manner. And by expressing yourself creatively, you develop a certain part of your character. you become a better human being all around, you know. And then finally he said, you know, and also a warrior needs to be brave and courageous. And that brings us to the point of the book today, because when I talk about psychopaths and the full-scale attack we are under, and it's just like you said, you know, it's the chemtrails, it's the vaccines, it's the microwave radiation, the G5 and or the 4G, sorry, 5G that they're coming through with now. I mean, it's all designed to destroy us. It's meant to drive us insane and then crazy. I mean, meant to drive us insane and crazy and then kill us. And so if I talk about this, that's scary. It's scary stuff.
It is scary because one of our listeners sent a note here and a chat, and he wanted to know if I would ask Stefan, can a sociopath or psychopath be a warrior?
No, because you see, a warrior needs compassion, and to have compassion, you need empathy, right? And so a psychopath, I know what he's referring to. There's they call it the warrior gene. They think they found the genetic component that makes up a psychopath, and that genetic component they have unfortunately called the warrior gene, but it's not the warrior gene at all. What it is a predisposition to violence, and it's genetic, yeah. But a warrior is not about violence. A warrior is the opposite of that. You need to understand violence so that you can face it and overcome your fear of it. It's not so a psychopath uses violence as a tool. A warrior would never use violence as a tool. A warrior would only resort to violence in order to protect himself or his family or his society. So, and also a warrior needs to express himself creatively, and psychopaths don't have really that depth to express themselves creatively. So, no, a warrior cannot be a psychopath. The warrior is actually very similar in many ways to a psychopath. For example, I'm often confused, well, not often, I have been in the past confused for being a psychopath by other psychopaths. That's how I know that they recognize each other, you know, because they would think, and the reason they think I'm a psychopath, normal people don't think that. Normal people don't, they might think I'm a little bit off track, but they don't think I'm a psychopath. But the reason is because I really don't care for societal norms. I don't care for authority figures. I don't care about what everybody is doing. I will go the opposite way. And in a sense, psychopaths are like that. They're not influenced by the herd thinking, by the sheep herd thinking. And neither am I. But the reason I'm not influenced by herd thinking is because I have researched it and I have developed my intellect and my abilities to overcome the urge to join the herd. So I don't care what the group says. I don't care what the fashion is. I don't care what the current thinking is. Whether I agree with it or not is dependent on my own critical analysis and understanding. Now, psychopaths, since they're not part of the human race, they're not affected by it. So I have been occasionally confused as a psychopath, and then they will realize that, oh, wait a minute, no, he's not a psychopath, and then they get all nervous because they kind of revealed themselves to me. They knew that I knew that they knew that I knew who the psychopath was.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
And there's another, yes, and Terry wants to know if there's a cure for psychopaths or sociopaths, or and if they can, be helped, and what does it say? Oh, and change their behavior, or do they go through life living as a psychopath and sociopath until they pass away?
Well, I'd recommend everybody to watch my video. It's on YouTube. It's called Defense Against the Psychopath. And it's a 38-minute video, and it just distills everything I ever learned about psychopaths into 38 minutes, and it's a real crash course on the subject. And in the video, I describe what is known as secondary psychopaths. So what happens is some people can be influenced by the culture, or maybe it's a drug addiction, or by their people in their lives, influenced to behave and react like psychopaths, but there might be still some chance to save them. For example,
Okay.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. The guest didn't ask this, but she, kind of boggled my mind here. How is it that we end up with so many what appear to be sociopaths and psychopaths in government? Because, I'm not saying Hillary Clinton is one, but let's just take an example. Let's just take an example, because when she was asked about Gaddafi being murdered on worldwide TV, assassinated by our government under the Obama regime, and his family, and then they fired off 220 Tomahawks at Libya, who never threatened to attack us, to my knowledge, and it killed women and children and so forth. So she began laughing hysterically when she was asked about that assassination. Then when she was under oath and being interviewed by the Congressional Committee about Benghazi and asked about the torture and murder of a U.S. ambassador and 3 heroic military men, she began laughing hysterically again. I found that really odd that anyone would be laughing hysterically over the torture and murders or assassinations of human beings. And so would that behavior, not talking about her personally, but would that type of behavior be something that a sociopath would do?
Yes, of course. I mean, how can you derive pleasure from suffering and murder? And I watched both of those interviews, and it was spontaneous, I mean, I think every time that woman stands in front of a microphone, she's been rehearsed. Remember, there's PR people that rehearse them on every word they say, and when to look, and when to look up, and when to look left, and when to hold their hand this way. I mean, everything is rehearsed down to the second, and down to the every movement of their body for when they give these presentations and these speeches. But when they start asking her about brutal murders, she bursts into laughter. That was pretty spontaneous. That wasn't rehearsed. There were no PR people that said, "Oh, and when they ask you about death and destruction and murder, be sure to laugh and clap hysterically," right? So what happened?
I know, it was shocking.
I know, it was ridiculous. So what it was the spontaneous glee of a psychopath reliving the imagery of death, torture, and destruction. Because, again, like I said, that's what they like. That's what gets them off, That is their kink. They enjoy suffering. So as reserved and calm and well-rehearsed as she is on every other subject, bring up death and murder. Oh, boy, she can't help herself. Oh, that was great. Yeah, he was sodomized with a bayonet. Oh, my God, that was great.
Oh, my goodness.
No, but of course, she's a psychopath. I'll say it. Oh, my God. It's
well, well, how on earth is it that we have people in public office who are in control of our country, our lives, our children, our food, our soil, our water, our oil, and our jobs and our money, and they aren't tested, psychologically evaluated before they enter office?
It wouldn't do any good. Because they would find a way to fudge the psychology test. If you were to set up a screening program for psychopaths, they would figure out a way of getting to the psychiatrists and bribing them or blackmailing them or murdering them until they could find one that they could bribe and blackmail. I mean, these people are ruthless, and the reason they get to the top of the power, number one, is they want power. They want it. For example, me, I have never in my life considered a political career. That's not a job option that ever came up on the radar ever in my life because I don't care for that. I'm not interested in having power over people and being an important person in society. Psychopaths are. So people like me who are, I'm a living saint. You know, I help people. I never hurt anybody. I'll give you the shirt off my back type of guy. Never been interested in power. But these people are. So now they're all going to be attracted to like moths to a flame, you know. They see this power, and once they get that power, they want to use that power to create a lot of misery and destruction, which is what they like to do, which is their kink. That's why they get off on it. But they first need the power. The more power they have, the more misery and destruction they can sow. So they're attracted to it. Now they'll.
So would you?
Yeah.
So would you say because you said they're attracted to each other, and so would you say that once they get into power that they are now appointing people in positions of power who are of like mind and really don't care if you're innocent or guilty, and therefore they end up protecting their own, as we've been watching and witnessing for a long time now, from heinous acts and crimes and alleged espionage, alleged spying, alleged failing to protect the American people from foreign invasion of enemies that are pedophiles. I mean, to me, if this is the case, America's definitely not in a good place now.
No, we are really screwed. We are in a serious point in history. We are at a tipping point that either we all, get our act together and fight this, or Western civilization, as we know it, will be doomed forever. We're not, once they've got the microchips in us and they've totally digitized the monetary system, then it's over. And that's what they want. They want complete and total control. I mean, if they could find a way of drilling into your skull and putting in a transceiver so that they can monitor what you think, they will do that because that's what psychopaths want. Complete and absolute control. And it's exactly like you said. When you get one psychopath in power, do you think he wants an honest guy, he or she? Do you think they want an honest person to be working next to him? Do you think they would want me? You see, because I'm the kind of guy that says, geez, Jim, that's, you charge that client 300% more than you needed to, and you're screwing the boss. You think that's the right thing to do? They don't want me there to say that, so they're going to make sure that the persons that are working in the organizations are just as corrupt and corruptible as they are, because then they can say, well, I'm going to rob this charity for Haiti of $300 billion. Don't say anything because I will release the porn tapes of you molesting 6-year-olds. Yeah, but that's how it works.
Wow, this has been so exciting to me because I just see the country just going down the tubes since the Clintons took office back in Arkansas, and nobody seemed to care. And now we've got the results, like you said, where we're sitting on a fence here, and we don't know which way we're going to be shoved over because we don't know how many warriors we have fighting back against this problem, a serious problem for America. And so we've come to the end of the show, and I hope you'll come back and visit us again, Stefan. Stefan H. Verstappen. So why don't you tell our audience quickly where they can read about you or your books or find you and buy them?
You can find everything at my website, which was named after my very first book, The 36 Strategies, which when I got it 20 years ago. So it's chinastrategies.com. And it actually doesn't have anything to do with China other than it was named after my first book. Some people think it's some sort of Chinese, phony company or whatever. No, it's my personal website. You'll find everything on there. And I encourage people to look into my book, The Way of the Warrior, because, you know, that's why I wrote it, because it's really bad out there and it's very scary. And so we need to work together. We need to get strong and we need to get brave, because if we wimp out, we have doomed our own progeny for generations. We won't get out of this.
No, we won't. I want to thank you so much, Stefan H., for stopping, and I want to encourage everyone to go to Amazon.com and look up all of his 8 books and read them, because it's important that you understand the seriousness of some of the people that are in positions of power, that have the power to, like you said, microchip us, throw us in jail, even if we're innocent, and cover up crimes among themselves, hold themselves above the law. And so we're in a really serious time in history of saving our country or losing it. And I definitely want to thank you so much. I hope you'll come back and talk about some of your other books in the future.
Sure, anytime,
and
Rose.
God bless you, and keep up the good work.
Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Stefan, and God bless you. And remember, this is Colombo Chronicles Live at Blog Talk Radio, and you can find me at www.colombochronicles.com. You can always check it out at Facebook, Rose Colombo, and Rose for Justice, the number 4, roseforjustice.com, and Twitter at Rose for Justice. And remember, this is a great opportunity to go to www.colombochronicles.com and check out a new website where you can subscribe and you can ask a question that may be very personal to you about your idea or your concern, and check out the entire website, and you will get a wonderful response that includes someone who actually cares about your idea or your concern in a timely manner. So God bless you. God bless America. And we'll talk to you next Wednesday on ColomboChronicles.com. This is Rose Colombo signing off and saying God bless you. God bless America. God bless our military. And God bless the United States police and firefighters and all of our public servants who are working to save the United States of America.